If you're considering listing your home for sale in the coming weeks and months, then this is the video for you, because we're going to talk all things multiple offers, when to use them, what types of properties generate multiple offers, pros and cons of the strategy, and don't forget to stay tuned to the end, because I'm going to give my number one thing that you must not do if you want to be successful as a seller listing your home in multiple offers in Toronto. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name's Stephanie Noss with the Homeplicity Realty Group at Keller Williams, and I've been selling real estate for 15 years. I am passionate about helping our clients build and develop wealth through real estate. If you're interested in information on buying a home, selling a home, or investing in Toronto real estate, then I hope you'll consider subscribing to our channel. Go ahead and give this video a like if you enjoy the content. And if there's any future video ideas that you'd like to see, go ahead and drop them in the comment box down below. Okay, so before we get started, I think we should talk about what a multiple offer actually is, what that strategy is. Actually, if you have ever bought a home or sold a home in multiple offers, then go ahead and comment down below what your experience was like, because I'd love to hear. Pretty much anyone who's bought or sold a home in the last couple months, and certainly the last couple of years, has probably been in and around some sort of multiple offers, or at least heard about it. But just in case you're somebody that hasn't sold a property in a while, you've been out of the market, or maybe you're in a different market than we are, multiple offer is a pricing strategy. So when we say multiple offers, it's basically the seller and their agent have got together and they have discussed a range for what they think the property will sell in, and it's a marketing strategy. So typically the property will be underpriced. In our Toronto market right now, it's typically between 10 and 20% below the actual market range. So when you hear about these properties selling for $200,000-$300,000 over asking, or 110, 115, 122% of asking price, it's not that there's these huge bidding wars that are significantly driving the prices up. It's that the property has been significantly undervalued in price as a marketing strategy to generate lots of buyers through the door, which in turn, more buyers through more offers typically generates a higher price. But typically it's just a slight amount more than what the previous one had sold for. So it's not 20% more than the last recent sale. I hope that makes sense. Who should be listing their property for multiple offers? It's really going to depend on the market. In a more balanced market, anytime we have a property that's really, really unique, or sometimes really hard to price out, there's nothing like it that's sold. Maybe it's a neighborhood where nothing comes up, nothing's sold in years. Sometimes it's really hard to put a price on a property. So in those instances, we would opt to just underprice a little bit, because we don't really know where the price is, and then have agents and buyers come through and let the buyers kind of determine what the top end of the range is for the property. Or when you have something super unique, like one of those modern, unique renovated homes with all the, glossy, it looks like it's out of a magazine, or some of those unique loft spaces. Toronto lofts are another one of our specialties, and there's just not that many loft buildings. Even in a slower or more balanced market, even gearing more towards a buyer's market, sometimes this strategy will work if you start the price low enough for Toronto lofts. Basically, when you have a really unique property that you know there's going to be a lot of demand for, or when we kind of are not certain how to price out the property, and then the most obvious, which is the market we're in right now, is when there's no inventory across all the property segments. There's no Toronto condos for sale compared to the number of buyers. So we've been seeing this in the Toronto housing market and condo market very strong in the first part of 2022. Almost every single listing that's been coming up has been generating multiple bids. The properties are selling in a week. I mean, it sounds great, right? So why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, the benefits to selling your property, just in general, your home, your condo, your loft, your unique home in multiple offers, is that you typically get it done in a week. And when we're talking about a really fast-paced market where there's not a lot of inventory, if I were to list my client's home, I would get 5-6 showings in the first hour booked, and probably at least a full price offer on the first night. So it's a situation where if we don't hold back and say, okay, no offers, like this is how this strategy started, because stuff was selling so fast that buyers didn't even have a chance to get in. If you couldn't get up from work, leave, get in your car, go and see the property, it would be sold by the end of the day. Multiple offers have transitioned into something that's gotten seemingly out of control, but in the beginning, it was just to make sure that enough buyers had access to take a look at the property, and it was beneficial for them and also beneficial for the seller because they would not be potentially leaving money on the table if there was more than one person who wanted to offer on the property and bump it up slightly. And then it's become what it is today over time, which is dramatically underpricing the property, holding it back for a week and having hopefully 5, 6, 7, 10, 25, 30 offers on a property. That's another conversation. Obviously, the pros for the seller and for the buyer is that there's a certain time period that the property's open for sale, that they have access to come in and take a look at it. And then the seller knows if I get 5 or 6 offers and the top price is X, then that's probably the best you're gonna do when you have that sort of competition. The other benefit for sellers with multiple offers is that oftentimes, well, your property is gonna be sold in 1 week, which is awesome. If you've ever sold a property, then you know it can be extremely inconvenient to be constantly keeping your house clean if you have pets or kids, to get them out of the house and work around their schedule. If you're working from home right now, obviously that's annoying too, to have people constantly in and out for 2, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, depending on the market. It is nice to be able to get your property sold within a week and have that assurance that if you've already purchased a property, that you're going to sell it probably for a really great price. You can match up the closing date because the seller has more power when we have multiple people vying for the property, right? So if I have 2 or 3, 4, 5, the number can keep going, people that want to buy a property, my sellers are probably going to get to pick their price. They're going to get to pick their closing date. They're going to get to pick conditions. And speaking of that, there typically wouldn't be a condition on a home inspection. There probably wouldn't be a condition on financing. That's very typical in our market right now. And there's probably not going to be a condition on the status certificate review. More than often, the home inspection and the status certificate would be provided ahead of time so that buyers are able to submit clean offers, clean as in no conditions. And typically buyers have prepped their mortgage and lenders to let them know that this is the situation, it's very competitive. And any mortgage broker that's been doing a fair amount of business in the last little bit understands how that process works too. So obviously it's great for the seller. You get your property sold in 1 week. You get the price that you're looking for, potentially even a little bit more. You have your closing date. You don't have any conditions. Done. So why wouldn't you want to do that? Because there's always possibility that you don't get offers, right? What happens if 2 or 3 other properties list at the same time? So this is something that I'm always very aware of when we're discussing the strategy with our sellers, is just letting them know that there's a possibility that it might not work. The market could shift a little bit. There's always a possibility that 2 or 3 other condos come up in your building, or 2 or 3 other homes on your street or in your immediate area that are comparable in size, comparable in price and finishes. If that happens, if that property also lists for multiple offers, then you have 2 people that are competing and kind of like stealing offers and buyers from each other. Then you have to kind of think, do we want to move our date sooner? Do we want to move it later? Do we want to stop the whole process and just list the property where we think it would go? Or potentially someone does just list their home at a market value and say, hey, I'm looking for 1.450. So anyone send an offer and we'll take a look at it. If people know that they don't have to be in competition, maybe they would prefer to opt for that route versus being in competition for multiple buyers for your property that's holding back on offers. In the event that we don't secure the top price, because sometimes if there's not sufficient number of offers, or sometimes things change. Like I said earlier, if there's more inventory in the market, people just try and use that to negotiate a little bit. When that happens, maybe you don't get the price that you were hoping for, or you don't get enough offers to secure that price, or you don't get any offers at all. You're left then with a decision on removing the property from the market and typically relisting it at a higher price. So the downside is that you've now lost an entire week or so that you could have just been marketing the property at the price you're hoping to expect. Or potentially if we're in a market that's declining, that's shifting a little bit, then there's a possibility that that week that you were on the market, 2 or 3 other homes came up and sold for a little bit less than the last ones, and then potentially you're chasing the market down. If you had just offered, who knows what would have happened? Maybe you would have got a better price, and it's disappointing, right? It's always disappointing for people when they put in all this work, and for the agents too. If you staged the property as the seller, if you've paid for it, if your agent has paid for staging, then you lost a week out of the staging because it's for 30 days. It can be discouraging. It's definitely not for everyone. It's not for every property. And you have to be very careful when you're selecting this. Next week, we have 3 properties that are going to be coming on the market for sale. 2 of them we're actually not going to be listing for multiple offers because there's too much inventory. And I've been looking and seeing people listing their condos for sale specifically. Every single property is coming up with multiple offers. So every condo that's being listed right now is being listed for multiple offers and holding back. And I've noticed a trend in the last little bit as inventory creeps up a little bit, as it does typically this time of year. And not everyone is getting multiple offers. It's when I start watching the market and seeing the inventory levels and watching to see past history, like very carefully, sometimes even the day of listing, we'll opt to change our strategy and just list at the price that we're expecting. The only properties that I would be listing right now in multiple offers would be areas or neighborhoods that do not have a lot of inventory. And for the downtown Toronto condo segment, there's a fair amount. It's creeping up. So that's definitely going to impact whether or not that strategy will work. It'll spread the buyers around, and potentially we won't generate enough buyer traffic or offers on offer night to generate the price that my clients are hoping for. Oftentimes it just makes more sense. And like I said earlier, anything that is very unique or in an area or building or neighborhood, a house, for example, where there's not a ton of inventory for sale, single family homes, then potentially on a case-by-case basis, it's still something that we are opting to do. But again, it's something that you need to have a good agent who is active in the market and who really understands inventory, absorption rates. And I know, for example, how many showings I should be getting. In a really strong market with multiple offers, sometimes I'll get 50 showings, 50 to 85 showings through my property. So if I notice a huge dip where we're getting 10 or 15 showings, that's not going to be enough to secure the number of offers. I noticed a couple weeks ago a real trend in the volume of showings coming down, and then started noticing more inventory coming and more people putting their properties up and not generating multiple offers. And we show that data to our clients. And oftentimes it makes sense for our clients to list at a number that they're willing to accept at this point for most properties. But like I said, for some of those really unique ones, it still does make sense. And this could change on a dime. It's all based on inventory levels. So you definitely want to have a really good conversation about the pros and cons, what that would look like, what you're going to do if you don't end up securing offers, and who else is up for sale. And that's something that has to be checked right up until like the moment that your agent hits submit onto MLS and puts the listing up, and then the coming days onwards, and checking for feedback just to make sure. So my number one tip, if you want to be successful in multiple offers in a good market, if you have more of a unique property, even in a more balanced market, do not price your property too high. Oftentimes clients will say, well, I think that the property should sell for about $850,000. So I'd like to list it for $799,000, because if it sells for that, I'm cool with that number. This is a mistake because of what I said at the beginning of the video, which is that most agents and buyers have the expectation that properties are going to sell between 10 to 20%. And I would say it's typically closer to the 20% over asking mark. So if you price it $799,000, oftentimes buyers have the expectation that the property is going to sell for way over. They think you are expecting a number that's higher than you actually are. So in this case, I would just recommend, if that's your number and you're nervous about the strategy, we're not 100% sure that we're going to be successful that way, just list it for $849,000 then, and hope that you can bring the price down if you need to. But you can't really start too low, but you can start too high. So I hope that helps. That's my tips and tricks for multiple offers in Toronto. If you're interested in knowing what the value of your Toronto home or Toronto condo is for sale, I'm more than happy to hear from you. You can give me a call. All my contact information is linked in the description box down below. Go ahead and give this video a like. Don't forget to subscribe, share this video if you think that one of your loved ones would benefit from it. And you can also follow us at Homeplicity Realty on Instagram and on Facebook. Until next time, bye.